All right, so the million-dollar question is why don't men open up? Of all the topics I've ever talked about, this one gets the most attention. So I think we need to keep talking about this one because here's something you need to know as a man. If you don't understand the protections you put in place and the reasons for why you don't open up, you're not going to be able to do it. And thus, you will miss out on creating meaningful connections with the people that you love. The last thing that you want is to get to the end of your life and to hear from your wife or your kids that they never really felt that close to you. They never really got to know you. I recently just had my parents in town and I was asking them questions about their parents who are all passed away. And I was so surprised at how little they really knew about their parents. And I even remember one of my parents saying, I can't remember if it was my mom or my dad, they said, I wish I would have asked him more about that. And even though my parents could have asked their parents these questions, the fact that from what I gather, my grandparents were emotionally closed off led to that information not being shared. And now they're gone. It's over. If you don't find a way to share your heart with people and your real experience of life, you miss out on those conversations that create closeness. And another side effect of that is that if you're not opening up to other people, they're not going to feel safe to open up to you. So you might not even know what you're missing out on. I hear most of my clients say that they did not feel comfortable opening up to their fathers. And you do not want to be that guy. Am I speaking truth? Okay, let's get into the reasons why men don't open up. This is the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast with me, Bryce Bauer. I've spent the last 15 years working mostly with men and exploring my own relationship with manhood, so I know what I'm talking about. The first reason that men don't open up is pretty simple. It's that they don't know how. And I like to compare this to swimming. When you watch someone swim, it doesn't look that hard. But if you don't know how to swim and you get into the water and your feet can't touch the ground, no matter how athletic you are going to be terrified. And men who don't know how to open up, who've never done it before, have a very similar feeling. They feel like they're going to fucking drown in the emotion. It can be existential. It's very threatening to their ego, to their psyche. If I go into that deep water, what if I never come out? Jenny and I were actually working with a couple yesterday, and the man had never really opened up about some of the things that had happened in his life. And as he started to do this with his wife, I could see that his body was shaking. Now, I didn't want to call that out. I didn't really want to embarrass him in that moment, but I saw it. I could see just how scared he was. And he did great. He stayed with it, but the amount of discomfort he was feeling was so obvious. It's almost like he had on his little floaties and we're there with him. We're like, hey, we're not going to let you sink. I don't know if he could do that on his own, probably not yet, but it was a huge win for him. And I tell guys this a lot. If you don't know how to open up, you need to go find a place to learn how to do this and to practice. Because if you don't have a framework or an understanding, you can actually do damage to yourself and the relationship. You might feel so much shame that you have to go out and cope with it in unhealthy ways. What you're trying to say might come out sideways towards your partner and turn into blame. You blaming them for how you feel and what you're experiencing because you don't really know how to speak with ownership yet. This really is an art. So it's more than just opening up and sharing information. Sometimes guys think that, oh, if I just share this story over and over, that's opening up. But they're not very embodied, or there are parts of the story that don't hit the deeper truths. So it doesn't go well. I'll give you a really basic example. A lot of guys blame their partners for being too emotional. They might say that their partner talks too much or talks too loud or gets really activated. And then one day they make a connection and they see that they had a parent that used to do that. And that's why it can be so upsetting for them. And that's a great connection to make. But then what they'll do with that is then they'll tell their partner, you can't do that because this upsets me. And I told you why. So don't do it ever again. And that's the piece where I'm like, not quite. You might not have deserved to be treated the way that you did, but you're a grown man now and your wife is having feelings, and your job is to work with your own triggers and trauma so that you can hold more of her emotions and your emotions about her emotions. And sure, she might need some work too on her delivery, but it's not fair to you to say, I realize that this is really uncomfortable for me. So it's all on you to stop doing it. That's an example of how ignorance in emotional capacity and communication can actually do damage to your relationship as you're starting to learn or starting to practice. So that's number one, and it's a big one. If you haven't put intentional time into learning how to open up and talk about your feelings and communicate, you probably suck at it, and you need to find a place where you can do that and learn. The second reason why men don't open up, and this can stay hidden from them for a long time, maybe forever, is fear. Just like the pool analogy, there is terror there underneath the surface. And the fears that they're swimming in is that they'll be judged, they'll be hurt, they'll be manipulated. And I have a lot of compassion for men because that can happen. Maybe it even happened to them earlier on in their life. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. So parents will hurt their kids sometimes and judge them for being too emotional, having feelings. They might manipulate their kids into being the way that they want them to be. You may have tried to be vulnerable in a past relationship or your current relationship, and you got burned. It got used against you. Men have a habit of kind of picking on each other, and that does not create a very safe environment to open up. If you have a group of friends that's always joking around and kind of picking at each other and never talking about anything with any depth, it can be hard to switch gears and try on vulnerability. And if there's been tension in your relationship and there's been judgment one or both ways, that also doesn't create the safest environment to open up. So that fear is real, even if men don't always know that that's what's going on. That's often what's at the core. The third reason is emotional fragility. I know most men don't like to admit this, but they have very fragile psyches. They need to be seen a certain way in order to feel okay. I need to be strong. I need to be confident. I need to be tough. And so if someone shines a spotlight on them and says, maybe there's more to you than just that, or they get some feedback that brings up an insecurity without even knowing it, they're quick to shut that down. And they have their own defense strategies and deflections. But as someone like me who knows what's going on underneath the surface for a lot of men, I see right through it. And I actually think a lot of women do too. They know there's something more going on when they ask, how are you doing? And they hear fine, or I'm just a little frustrated. They see a man who just doesn't want to go there and who's putting up a wall, because to go there would be scary and they would feel fragile. So this is an issue of emotional capacity. If it hasn't been flexed, it hasn't been strengthened, it hasn't been acknowledged, then men will keep playing their character. And a lot of times they don't even know it. And for me, it can be a mix of humor and sadness. Sadness because I see a lot of men that don't really understand themselves and don't feel close to anybody. And humorous because the characters that some men play are so stupid. Take the alpha male stereotype. It's almost like a movie character. It's not a real person. So to play this character in real life, it's just so fake. And I'm not saying that we don't all play our own characters, but some men are trying way too hard. And the irony is that the harder a man is trying to portray themselves a certain way, the more likely it is that they're going to crash and burn at some point. You see this all the time on the news. Homophobic pastor gets caught with male prostitutes, or financial guru gets indicted for stealing millions of dollars. It almost seems like it's bound to happen. So I don't know what everyone else's theories are on being a human, but I think being yourself is the best bet. The fourth reason men don't open up is that they feel a loss of control. Men love to feel in control of their environment and the people in their environment. And I can see the primal nature of this. Being in control afforded men a higher level of safety. If you were a weak man, maybe you would be ostracized or pushed out of the community, or you wouldn't find a partner. I'm just aware that we have this wiring in our brains that we can't get away from. But the year is 2025. And so we don't have to worry about that in the same way anymore. So if you have a partner that's wanting more connection with you, wanting you to open up more, you're going to have to let go of some of that control because feelings don't come forward until we release control. We have to stop trying to control ourselves and being so tight. That's why I think every man needs to learn how to meditate, understanding how to relax your body, create some separation between your awareness and your thoughts so that feelings don't feel as existentially threatening. That whole process can be learned and then applied to your relationship with your partner. Meditation will help you communicate better for sure. And the final reason that men don't open up is they don't see the value. And I've talked with men about this a lot. If you were raised in a family where you were emotionally neglected as a little boy, that's all you know. You've never experienced what's possible. So men will do this is they'll just create that same environment in their own household. Maybe initially with their partner, they'll be attentive and they'll attune to them and try to open up some during the courting process. But then at 6 months to 2 years, they'll just go back to sleep. And if they've never been through the process of conflict and repair and coming out of that feeling more safe and more connected, they don't know any other way. But I do think that men know in their hearts that more is possible. And that's what I'm trying to speak to here. If we're really being honest, you know that you need some help and some work on opening up. You know that that will help build more meaningful connections in your life. You actually already know that. I don't have to tell you that there's value there. Your job is to remind yourself of that, to make this a foundational pillar in your life. You don't have to do it. It's up to you. But if you're listening to a podcast like this, hopefully that's a good reminder. And as men, we have to do this work. People are counting on us, and we will impact people more than we'll ever know. You are more important than you realize. So that's what I have to say for today. I'll include links for more information on how to work with Jenny or me or both of us. And I will see you next week.